I'm special in America. They are awful. Like, they are the worst ever. Tell that to every boyfriend I've ever had who tried to go out wearing tracksuit bottoms to a restaurant. So today we're going to talk about some beauty standards, things that are different in the USA versus Europe. Now, I shouldn't have to do a disclaimer, but apparently sometimes I need to say that I am talking in general. The aesthetic in France is going to be very different than it is in Ireland, just the same way it will be very different in New York versus Mississippi. What do people in Mississippi wear? I don't really know. Also, everybody likes the Instagram face these days. Like, everybody seems to aspire to that one particular look for men and women. I think it's kind of boring. I mean, I've fallen prey to it for sure, but there are things that are more European versus American, generally speaking, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Before I get into the video, do be sure to like and share and comment and subscribe, because all of those things are free to do and I would appreciate it, and maybe a good thing will happen to you if you do them, like a free drink of your choice. That could happen. There's karma. Okay, the first thing that I believe is probably the biggest aesthetic difference in what is popular looks-wise in the USA versus Europe is size, the size of people and size inclusivity. So everybody knows there is a big movement these days for size inclusivity for brands and stuff, and I feel like America is doing it for realsies, whereas I feel a lot of European brands are doing it for the pose. We've talked about here before on this channel that the obesity epidemic is definitely a thing in America, and it is on the rise in certain parts of Europe, for example in Ireland, but in other parts of Europe, thin is in. It's just the thing. There is a saying that some people who will be fat in Europe will be skinny in America, but the irony is that everybody will be fat in China. Like, I'm obese in China. I'm kind of on the fence on this one. In some ways, I think it would be cool if it would evolve more, less so like to be people who have like a big problem, but more so different shapes of bodies would be cool to see. I believe they've only just come up with the first plus size male model. Like, you would have thought that would have happened by now, and he's just a pretty standard looking guy. He's not massively overweight or anything, he just looks regular. But I do see certain things being problematic, like for example, massively obese people. But I do think that sometimes it can be taken too far, in the same way that putting somebody who's excessively thin on the cover of a magazine and putting somebody excessively overweight on the cover of a magazine, there's nothing good about that. You're just promoting not healthy stuff. Like, aspirationally, we should be seeking to look at people who are healthy. And what does that look like? It can look like a big bum, it can look like big arms, big hips, or you can look too skinny, like, it just depends. But while I do fluctuate weight-wise, I've never faced the issue of going into a shop and being unable to find my size. So I do think there could be a lot more evolution in that respect in Europe. The next thing I would say is that muscles for men are different stylistically in Europe versus America. America seems to favor the aesthetic muscularly of like being wide here and going in like a V, like an upside down V. Whereas European men prefer a slimline look all the way down, muscular, but like all one kind of size. A compact look, you know? That makes sense. I feel like this is one of the reasons I can spot American versus a European man. Just the general distribution of weight and muscle is different. Just because aesthetically one prefers one over the other. The next thing that's different, I think, is that Europeans tend to value skincare more over Americans who value makeup more. I would say that certain parts of Europe definitely prefers to focus on having good skin and good hair and things like that, and letting that show through your makeup, whereas Americans are fabulously talented. There are incredible makeup artists in Europe as well, but generally speaking, I think like looks wise, skincare is bigger than makeup in Europe and makeup is bigger than skincare in America. Let me know your thoughts on that one below. And this one, I feel like, yeah, I'm very much a part of in a way. In Europe, blonde hair and blue eyes are not a big deal. More people have blue eyes than have brown eyes in Ireland. It's just not a big deal. I literally didn't get pretty much any comments on my eye color until I joined YouTube, and Americans were like, you have nice eyes. And I was like, I just have regular eyes. They're just my eyeballs in my head. But like, because everybody has the same eye color, it's not a big deal. Also, for blondes, like there are a lot of blondes in Europe and it's just not a big deal. We just don't stand out. It's not special. Whereas I think in America, because it's such a hot pot, I do get that wrong. Melting pot of different cultures and ethnicities, because I guess blonde hair, blue eyes is a, what's the word, not dominant gene. There's less of it there, so it's a bit more interesting. Whereas here it's just, I'm special in America. The next thing, and this is on the change for sure in Europe, huge trend toward this right now in Europe, is the perfectly white teeth. So I would say up until maybe 5 years ago, there was a massive contrast between the teeth of American people and European people. And a lot of that is to do with fluoride being in the water in the USA, as well as dental health care being, like, as I understand it, something that a lot of jobs will give as like a perk of your job. Also, I think your insurance policies sometimes cover dental. You can clarify that for me below in the comments, what you think the reasons are for dental care being such a big thing in the USA. But we would always say Americans have pretty great teeth, generally speaking. Whereas for a lot of Europeans, dentistry is pretty expensive. We don't generally have fluoride in the water. I think it's outlawed, or maybe there's like a certain dosage they're allowed, but not as much as in the USA at all. And I know the British are often slagged off for having bad teeth in particular, not so much the Irish. Now, on the rise in Europe is this new thing called turkey teeth. They are awful. Like, they are the worst ever. And by turkey teeth, I'm not talking about people who go to Turkey for cosmetic surgery and it turns out great. I'm referring to people who go to Turkey and their teeth are completely botched. So basically, people fly to Turkey for cheap plastic surgery. I think some people in the USA might do it as well, fly to Turkey. But they're basically doing these one-size-fits-all teeth for people over there on the cheap. And I've heard that basically they will go in, they will file down your teeth before you even have your consultation. So you're locked in to getting your teeth done there. And they're like impossibly white teeth, and they're not customized to your mouth. They're just like, everybody gets the same teeth, and they're often done really poorly, and they let like diseases get into your gums and stuff like that. I'm sure there are very good teeth dentists. I would like to say teeth doctors. They're called dentists, Diane, in Turkey. And again, when you never hear about the good stories because you don't really notice somebody has great teeth and they got them done in Turkey, you only see the people who got their teeth done in Turkey and they're bad. Because if they're good, you're not going to comment on them, right? Like, they're just going to be great teeth. But we are going toward the impossible white look that Americans made popular, and I feel like this is one of those things that is going to age quite poorly in every respect. I think stylistically it's going to date badly, and I also think that unfortunately a lot of those people don't realize when they get their teeth filed down that they're going to have to go back in 10 to 20 years to get it done again, get their teeth filed down more again, and then eventually there's going to be nothing left to file down. They're just going to need dentures, which is quite tragic because a lot of these people going over are like 18, 19 years of age. It's quite sad, really. The next thing is the general look of European women versus American women. I feel like the American favored look for women hasn't changed in a long time. Don't get me wrong, there are all different kind of looks of people, but I'm talking maybe on a commercial level. The look that is popular is the same look that was popular in the 80s and 90s. It's kind of long hair, girl next door thing. In contrast, in Europe, I do think experimental looks are a lot more fashionable. Additionally, a broodier look seems to be more the go-to here in Europe. You'll get like broodier looks, short hair. It's more fashion, certainly in places like Italy and things like that. So in some ways, I do think fashion-wise, I'm not a fashion person, but it's more evolved in Europe than what's going on with my hand than in America. I'm gonna sit on it now. The next big difference I think in beauty standards is that in Europe, it's about highlighting your best feature, whereas in the USA, from all the YouTube tutorials on makeup and stuff like that, it's more about hiding your flaws, if that makes sense. So in Europe, for example, you might say somebody has really nice lips but a big nose. It'll be all about like putting red lipstick on to highlight your good features. Whereas I've seen on a lot of American TV shows, like for example makeover shows, they talk about like, oh, you need to wear this to hide your big hips or your big whatever. I'm not saying these are inherently bad features, I'm just saying generically speaking, these are the things that we're told are good and are bad. Hey, my hand's back. Europeans highlight their good features, Americans hide their bad features. That is something that I found researching this video seemed to be a common trend. I'm not 100% sure I'm on board with this one. Let me know below in the comments your take on it. As always, I use my own thoughts and feelings and opinions, but also I research, and this just came up a lot. And finally, when it comes to a male aesthetic, in America, the favorite look tends to be something we would traditionally call, well, traditionally as of the last 10-15 years, called the lumbersexual look. Very beardy, doing woodsy things, versus the European look tends to be much more groomed and stylized. Tell that to every boyfriend I've ever had who tried to go out wearing tracksuit bottoms to a restaurant.
Nope.
No, Mark, not today.
Mark never did make it to the restaurant.
Even when it comes to suits, you guys prefer a more, I don't know, kind of a, I can only describe it with noises, more of a look in America, whereas in Europe it's more like, does that make sense? More fitted, I guess. Let me know below in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of these things. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts and opinions. Thank you so much, guys. That's it for today. See you on the other side. Bye. But also, like, you know, people have, oh. My vacuum cleaner is going.
1 million zillion jillion dillion cotillion times later.
We're living in the future, a time where robots do our vacuum cleaning for us. I'm kind of on the fence on